This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. I am very excited to present today's game, which is the Precon decks from Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. In today's game, Maximus has paired up Merry and Pippin, keeping 2 Plains, Shire Terrace, Woodland Cemetery, Feasting Hobbit, Prize Pig, and Fumigate. Mika has decided to play Éowyn Shield Maiden, keeping Port Town, Island, Mountain, Supreme Verdict, Éomer King of Rohan, Baragon of the Guard, and a Fiend Hunter. Eric is playing Saruman the White Hand, keeping a Frostboil Snarl, Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, Goblin Cratermaker, Merciless Executioner, Bitter Downfall, and Field of Ruin. I've decided to try Gandalf Westward Voyager, keeping a Soul Ring, 2 Islands, Forest, Rejuvenating Springs, Heroic Intervention, and Lorien Revealed. Eric wins the die roll and starts us off. Eric draws and plays a Rogue's Passage. He then casts Soul Ring, and follows that with an Arcane Signet. Mika just plays an Island. I've got a Rejuvenating Springs and cast my own Soul Ring. Maximus has a tapped Woodland Cemetery come in and passes. Eric plays a tapped Frost Fury Snarl and taps 4 mana for Relic of Sauron. He taps that for 2 and casts a Goblin Cratermaker. Mika draws and also plays a Furycom Snarl, and his comes in tapped as well. I display a Forest and pass. Max plays an Exotic Orchard and casts Pippin. He passes after that. Eric plays a tap Sulphur Falls and casts Corsairs of Umbar. He then swings the Cratermaker, dealing 2 to Mika. Mika's got a Mountain for turn and casts the Crown of Gondor. I've got an Island and I'm able to cast Gandalf, passing to Maximus. Maximus plays a Plains and casts a Prize Pig. He then passes after that. Eric's turn has him bringing out Saruman the White Hand in his main phase, and still has enough mana to cast a Merciless Executioner. This has everyone who can sacrifice a creature. He then moves to combat, and the Corsairs go at me, dealing 3. This lets Eric work a mass for 3, and he passes after that. Mika plays out a Glacial Fortress, and then taps enough for Baragon of the Guard. This has him becoming the Monarch, and he passes. I draw and play a Forest. I cast a Growth Spiral, drawing a card, and playing an extra land, which is an Island. I then cast Mirror of Galadriel, and pass. During my end step, Maximus activates Pippin, Warden of Isengard, and makes a food token. Max plays a Forest, and then brings out Merry. He gets to shuffle with the partner with target, and passes to Eric. Eric plays a Command Tower, and then uses the Corsair's own ability to make it unblockable. He swings it at Mika, dealing 3, stealing the Monarchy, and gets to Orc Amass 3 again. He then passes, drawing at the end of turn. Mika plays a tap Path of Ancestry, and casts a Humble Defector, which thanks to Baragon, pumps his team by +1/+1 and Vigilance. He then casts a Harsh Mentor. Eric responds to that by activating the Relic of Sauron to draw 2 and discard 1. The Mentor then resolves, and Baragon once again pumps the team. Mika then swings Baragon at Max, who, before moving to blockers, activates Pippin and makes a food token. This triggers Merry to make a 1/1 soldier token, and Max also takes 2 from the Harsh Mentor. Max then blocks with the token, and Mika passes, but before leaving the second main phase, Eric uses Bitter Downfall, which has a reduced cost because of Baragon taking damage, to take him out. I play a Forest and then just recast Gandalf. Maximus plays a Plains and passes. Eric's main phase has Lord of the Nazgul come in, and he then taps 4 mana for Lidless Gaze. This lets him Orc Amass for 4 thanks to Saruman, and we all exile our top cards, which he can play until the end of his next turn. Eric then plays Max's Stolen Swamp, and also gets a Wraith token from the Lord of the Nazgul for casting an instant or a sorcery. Eric then sacrifices the Cratermaker, and targets Pippin to try and take it out, which Max responds to by activating him to make a food token, which in turn has Mary make a soldier token. Max is then very happy to realize that it's actually Tolkien and not Token, and Pippin gets taken out. He also takes 2 from the Harsh Mentor again. Moving to combat, Eric swings the Corsairs and the army at Max. Max blocks with a token and Mary and stops both of the hits. Eric then passes, drawing from being the Monarch at the end of turn. Mika draws her turn and activates the Humble Defector, drawing 2 and then donating it to Eric. He follows up with a Supreme Verdict and wipes away the board. Once that's done, he plays out a Withered Wayfarer, getting to scry 1 from the path trigger, and he passes to me. I play a Forest and cast Lorien Revealed, drawing 3 cards. I then bring out the other face commander, Galadriel, and pass. Maximus plays out Shire Terrace as his land for turn, and then recasts Pippin. He forces Eric to search for Mary this time, just to make him shuffle and waste time. Eric plays my Stolen Force as his land for turn, and then casts one of the coolest cards in the Precon, at least in my opinion, Summons of Saruman, putting 9 into the X. This lets him Orc Amass for 9, then mill 9 cards. He gets to cast an instant or a sorcery that costs 9 or less from among those milled cards, which is unfortunately mostly lands, but he does get to cast a Deep Analysis, letting him draw 2. In response to that, Max sacrifices the Shire Terrace to go and find a basic. Eric then passes, and draws at the end of turn from being the Monarch. Mika is quick to slap out a Grey Host Reinforcements, which as it enters, exiles Eric's graveyard. Since 6 creatures get exiled, Mika adds 6 +1/+1 counters to the reinforcements. He then once more activates the Weathered Wayfarer, and goes to grab a Prairie Stream, which he then plays, and it comes in untapped. I play a tap Thornwood Falls, and bring out Éowyn, Weaver of Hope. Moving to combat, since Galadriel has seen an elf come in, I get to trigger my Will of the Council. I vote for guidance, and so does the rest of the table, letting me draw a card. I then pass to Max. Max recasts Mary, and makes Eric try and find Pippin this time, which Eric fails to do but still has to shuffle. Maximus then plays out a Birds of Paradise, and passes. Eric plays a Terramorphic Expanse, and then recasts Saruman. He then taps 3 for a Basalt Monolith, triggering Orc Amass for 3, and adds 3 more counters to it. Commander Sphere then does the same, and he follows that with another Mana Rock, casting Mind Stone and adding 2 more +1/+1 counters to his army. Eric then sacrifices the Terramorphic Expanse to find a tap basic, and passes, drawing during his end step. Before leaving his turn though, Mika uses Swords to Plowshares and exiles Saruman. Mika once more activates the Weathered Wayfarer after drawing for turn, and finds a land and plays it. He then casts a Marshal's Anthem and kicks it once. This brings back Baragon of the Guard, which pumps his board by +1/+1 and gives them Vigilance, plus the Marshal's Anthem pumps them by a further +1/+1 forever. He then swings his Flying Grey Host Reinforcements at Eric, dealing 9 and taking back his crown. He then passes, drawing at the end of turn, and I like that so much I decide to do something similar, activating the Mirror of Galadriel, which costs 2 less to activate thanks to my legendaries, to draw a card. I draw for turn and play a Forest. I then cast Arbor Elf and go to combat. I get my Will of the Council and pick Dominion, while my opponents pick Guidance, so I'm forced to draw a card. I then pass through combat, in my second main phase, cast a Lithorian Blade, and then gear it up onto Galadriel. I then pass to Maximus, who during my end step uses Pippin to make a food token, and Mary makes him a soldier token since an artifact came in. Max's main phase has Assemble the Entmoot coming in, which gives his team reach, which I think is kind of funny since they're hobbits. He then passes after that. Eric plays a Foreboding Ruins, revealing a relevant land type from his hand, and then casts a Moria Scavengers. We then see a Siege Gang commander come in, and Eric makes 3 Goblin tokens. He swings his massive army at Mika, who takes the full hit, and Eric then takes the Monarchy back and passes, drawing during his end step. Mika draws and uses the Wayfarer to find a land in his main phase. He then plays it for turn, which is an Exotic Orchard. Mika then casts an Increasing Devotion, making 5 1/1 human tokens, and Baragon triggers 5 times, which pumps his board massively. Moving to combat, Baragon goes at Max, and the Grey Host goes at Eric. Max once more uses Pippin to make a food, which has Mary make a token, which he blocks Baragon with. Eric takes the hit though, and Mika takes back his crown. He then passes, but before letting Mika draw from being the Monarch, Eric flashes in Notion Thief. This has him drawing during Mika's end step instead, and we then move to my turn. I draw for turn and cast an Elvish Visionary, which comes in with a counter from Éowyn, and Eric steals my draw. We then move to combat, and Galadriel triggers, and once more I vote for the ring tempting me, while my opponents force me to draw, which Eric in turn steals as well. I then swing Galadriel at Mika, using the Lothlorien Blade trigger to take out Baragon. Mika then takes the hit, and I become the Monarch, but I don't get to draw because Eric steals it, so what was even the point? Maximus plays Evolving Wilds, and then plays out Chromatic Lantern, which triggers Mary to make another soldier token. He then passes, and before leaving the turn, Eric once more untaps his Monolith. Eric plays an island for turn and recasts Saruman. He then brings in the Monstrosity of the Lake, and as it enters, he pays the 5, which taps all of his creatures his opponents control and puts a stun counter on them. Responding to this, Maximus makes a food token and then makes a token with Mary. Moving to combat, Eric then swings the Orc army at Mika and 1 Goblin token at me. We both take the hits, and I fare better since Mika gets taken out. Eric also regains the Monarchy from me, and draws as he passes turn. I play a tapped land, and then cast Cultivate, going to find basics and passing while searching. During my end step, Maximus sacrifices his Evolving Wilds to find a basic as well. Maximus plays a forest and passes. At the end of turn, Eric untaps the Monolith again, and then sacrifices the sphere to draw a card. He then activates the Moria Scavenger, discarding the land and drawing a card, but since it's not a creature, doesn't get to Orc Amass. Eric moves to his turn and plays a Smoldering Marsh. He plays out a Balrog of Moria, and then a Gutter Snipe. He casts Boon of the Wishgiver, drawing 4 and adding 6 +1/+1 counters to the Orc army, and deals 2 to Max and I from the Gutter Snipe. He follows up with Treason of Isengard, adding 3 more counters to the Orc army, dealing 2 more with the Gutter Snipe, and then puts the boon on top of his library. Going to combat, Eric swings his army, Balrog, and Watcher at Maximus. Before damage, Maximus sacrifices a lot of food tokens, jumping up to 47 life. He then sacrifices Assemble the Entmoot, making 3 15/15 Treants, which sadly come into play tapped. He then takes the hit for 40, and Eric passes, drawing at the end of turn from being the Monarch. I play a Field of Ruins and sacrifice it to blow up Eric's Rogue's Passage, and we all go find a basic to put to field. I then move to combat, and I swing Galadriel at Eric, and use the Blade trigger to take out the Notion Thief. Eric then blocks with a Scavenger, and I pass to Max. Maximus asks for a creature count, and then swings his team at Eric. He has Pippin become unblockable thanks to Access Tunnel, and Eric uses his goblins to block the Ents and stops everything else but Pippin. In his second main phase, Max then casts Fumigate and wipes the board. He gains life from each creature being destroyed, jumping up to 23. Max then plays out a Feasting Hobbit, eating the last remaining food token, so it comes in with 3 +1/+1 counters. He then casts Farseek and goes to find a land, passing while searching. Eric draws and plays a mountain, and then casts Anger in his main phase. He follows up with Living Death, and we swap our boards for our graveyards. Once the creatures are out, we resolve the Enter the Battlefield triggers, and he gets to steal my draw from the Visionary since Notion Thief is out. Eric then makes 3 Goblin tokens from the Siege Gang commander. Max and I then have to sacrifice a creature from the Voracious Fellbeast, and because of this, Eric makes 2 food tokens. He then gets to resolve the Monstrosity trigger, paying the 5 colorless, and once more, Max and I tap down our creatures and add a stun counter to them. Moving to combat, Eric then has enough to swing at Max and take him out, and he passes to me. I untap, but not my creatures, and draw. I then recast Gandalf, and place Seeds of Renewal, targeting Growth Spiral and Lorien Revealed. Eric then reveals his top card, which is Subjugate the Hobbits, and is a sorcery too, so it works with Gandalf's trigger. I'm gonna be honest, we spent a good 5 or 6 minutes googling how Gandalf works because of the wording, and it was kinda confusing, but we came to the conclusion that we're pretty sure it just makes another copy of Seeds, which at this point won't help me, so I scoop it up to Eric. Game review time. So I'll save my review of the sets for the next game since we filmed 2 of them this night, but overall this game was kind of iffy. I wasn't able to do very much with Gandalf, and the only time that I did, it really didn't matter. Basically all I did was ramp, which didn't really help me since I didn't have any cards to cast anyway. Maximus's deck was kinda similar but a bit better. He gained a ton of life, and made some massive ents as a result of it, but unfortunately it didn't matter since the armies of Mordor were too strong. I think Eric's opening hand was really powerful, giving him a ton of mana and allowing him to get out of the gate very fast. That, plus the fact that Saruman continued to pump and or make another creature as soon as he casted anything that wasn't a creature, really helped him have a consistently good board state. Mika also had a really great board state, and I really had to deal with that Baragon before he flashed back the Increasing Devotion, pumping his entire board by +10/+10 in Vigilance. That would have resulted in Mika having an incredible combat step that turn, and frankly, I think we all probably would have died. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.